What's up, guys? I just want to show this quick, cool little lesson on what you can play over altered dominant chords. And this particular chord we're using in this example is a 13 sharp 11 chord. So the chord, we're in the key of A flat for this example. So the first chord is an A flat major. The second chord is an F minor. The third chord, which is the one that we're going to emphasize in this lesson, is a B flat 13 sharp 11. I know that sounds like a lot. It's real simple. If you think about it in polychord terms, in the left hand, imagine just playing like a B flat 7 chord, just a B flat, a D, and an A flat. And in the right hand, playing a C major chord, C, E, G, or E, G, C, if you want to play a different version, or G, C, E, it doesn't matter, whichever version you want to use. B flat 7 and a C major on top of the B flat 7. That's all that's happening. So there's different options of what you can play because it's not just a dominant chord, but there's an alteration of this dominant chord that's being spelled out that as a bass player, I can use all of those notes to come up with different ideas and different ways to articulate that, to expound upon the sound that's being created. So B flat would be my expected bass note, but as you saw in the example, there's other bass notes I can play. What are those? So we'll talk about 3 of them today. The first option is we can treat it like it's a B flat 7 chord, and we can play some of the lines that we're used to playing over a B flat dominant 7 chord. You know, things of that nature, more of like a blues kind of feel. We could also, because again, it's a polychord, so the right hand is playing a C major. So we can treat it like it's a C major arpeggio. That's about as far as we can really stretch out in the idea of C major. Are there other notes from C major we could add? Yes, the ones that are already in the key of B flat, obviously, and we'll talk about that more at another time. But for simplicity purposes, let's just look at it as a C major arpeggio. So over that B flat chord, we could play C, E, G, E, C. So we could use that triad in place of the B flat bass note. Another option that we can use is instead of playing the B flat, because we're dealing with altered dominants, and we can deal with the idea of tritone substitutions. So whenever you're dealing with a tritone, for example, in this example, the B flat is the bass note, and the notes that I'm playing along with that, there's a D and an A flat, which create what we call a tritone. In other words, 3 whole steps away. So from A flat, if you go up 3 whole steps, 1, 2, 3, then there's D, and there's this tritone interval. And whenever that happens, you've always got options in your bass note. So B flat could be my bass note, as we've already explained, but E, which would be a tritone away from B flat, or a flat 5 away, or a sharp 4, however you want to look at it, but a tritone away from B flat is E. So you've got B flat, E, B flat, E, and whichever octave you want to play, you get the ambulance sound, the old cartoon ambulance. Right. So that's an easy way to remember your tritone intervals. And the cool thing about the bass guitars are just diagonally separated by a string. So instead of playing B flat, we could play E as our bass note. We could just simply play that because, again, it would be that tritone substitution for the B flat 13 sharp 11. But not only could we just play the E as our bass note, we could also use an altered dominant scale. We could use it over B flat, but it's gonna have a lot of resistance and dissonance. And the reason why is because of the chord we're playing. Even though it is a B flat dominant altered chord, because it's the sharp 11, that altered dominant doesn't really sit well with it if you're playing it from the B flat root. But if you play an altered dominant scale from the tritone substitution root, which is E, then it sounds incredibly well. It sounds perfect. It's like none of the notes clash. And what happens, because E is now my bass note, if I'm using the E altered dominant scale, also known as the diminished whole tone scale, if I'm using E as my bass note, and I'm playing that altered dominant scale, then what it changes the chord to, even though the keyboard player intends to play 13 sharp 11, you know, so what in their mind they're playing just 13 sharp 11. But once I change the bass note to E, now it becomes an E sharp 9 sharp 5, so an E7 sharp 9 sharp 5. So by changing that bass note to the tritone substitution from B flat to E, I've changed the spelling of the chord. So they're still playing the same chord, but because I'm the bass player, I get to determine what that chord is going to be called. That's the thing I love about playing bass and understanding theory and harmony, how harmony works. So I'm going to go through some of those examples, and I'm going to play just like a B flat 7, again, like I did in the earlier example. And I'm going to talk about it when I'm doing it. Then I'm going to play like I'm using C major in place of the B flat bass note. And then I'll use E in place of the B flat. And then I'll play the whole altered dominant scale starting on E. So let's look into that. Okay, so here we go with our example. F minor, treat it like C. So watch with that. Let's just listen to the chord by itself. So I have a loop of just the B flat 13 sharp 11 chord, and I'm going to change that to so many different things that it'll sound like in your ear, like, wow, what's going on right now? So here's the chord by itself. That's that chord. So we'll play just B flat dominant over it. Right, so we hear B flat. Right. So we hear it on our ear now that's definitely a B flat root. But let's change the root now. Same chord, no trickery here. Let's change the chord now. Let's treat it like I'm playing over C. What? It's like, where'd the B flat go? You know, it's like you don't really hear it in your head anymore. Let's go back to the B flat. Ah, there it is. So let's go back to the C major. And it sounds really cool to start the arpeggio on the G, because G is, you know, it's a great interval in B flat already. It's the 13 if you're thinking about the chord voicing, or the 6th of B flat, but the 13 in the chord. And so it just sounds really, it's just a great interval to start on, you know. It's so ambiguous. It's part of C, it's part of B flat. And so it just opens up the opportunity for what's going to come next. Instead of just starting right on the C, I can start right on the C, then you hear the dissonance. It kind of spoils it a little bit. But if I start on the G, because the G is deceptive, because I could be just playing the 13. No. Right, so the G is really deceptive. C. Right now you're probably saying it sounds more like a C chord than it does a B flat chord, right? That's what the ear hears, right? It's just deception to the ear. But watch this. You think that was freaky? Music theory is freaky. Check out what happens when I play the E. Just give the ear a second to hear it. Because now you're starting to hear that sharp 9, sharp 5. And you're wanting to go to A from here. You want to go. That's what you hear next, right? Because it's a sharp 9, sharp 5. That chord is very leading to a fifth or what? Or it's like a fifth set up to going back to a root. So it's like a fourth from where you are. So here's the scale I'm going to use, the altered dominant scale. It's also called diminished whole tone. Why is it called that? The first few intervals are like a diminished scale. So it's E, F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D, E. So the the first few intervals are like playing the diminished scale. And then after that, it becomes a whole tone scale. So you've got like this diagonal interval here that happens here. E, D, C, B flat. So let's just play that scale over the chord. So when you listen to it, it's like, wow, it sounds like I've lost track of where B flat was, right? It's there. B flat or E, B flat. So these are some of the different cool things you can play in place of just the root note for that 13 sharp 11 chord. So have fun with some of those. All right.